Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sempre Milan bonus podcast on Substack. This week, me and Anthony are going to be reacting to the interview that Gerry Cardinale did on the Varsity, where he spoke about Milan after a long time. And we are going to be talking about some of the rumours that have come out about the ownership situation at the club.
Sorry, guys.
There he is. There he is. Thought it was just me. Everyone's about to click off because it's just me talking to myself. AJ's here. How are you doing?
Still coughing, which is why I didn't press the button. I coughed during the intro video and then lost my cue. So it is what it is there, but,
Yeah,
I'm alive.
Yeah, I'm just glad you're good at pressing the button to mute when you know that you're about to make a noise that's not very savoury for the viewers. We had someone who was part of the crew who wasn't particularly good at that. We got so many comments about it. It actually became a running thing, didn't it? But yeah, anyway.
Wasn't good at making the time that he would schedule either, so.
No, that's true. Maddie's, we're speaking about him in the past tense. I mean, he'll be around at some point. I'm
not
sure.
dead yet.
No, but anyway, it's just us two for this one. As mentioned in the intro, Cardinale has lifted his silence, shall we say, on Milan. He hasn't really spoken about the club publicly for quite a long time. And I suppose the context of this particular interview is a little bit different in the sense that he went on a podcast called The Varsity. Have you ever heard of it before? It's obviously an American thing.
I've heard of it, but
Varsity is like college, is it? So
yeah.
I don't really know what.
No, yes and no. It typically would refer to like the top level of the high school team because there's like junior varsity below it.
Right. Okay.
Freshman, but yeah, it tends to just mean like sports kind of at an American level sort of deal.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But anyway, he's gone on this and he's spoken extensively about quite a few of his investments, and I guess naturally, as part of the discussion, spoke about Milan and his ownership experience, of course, as the founder and the leader of Redbird Capital. First of all, I think it's worth mentioning that he did this interview with them because it has been a while since he's spoken about us. Now, sometimes I think the best owners, especially when they're the face of a fund, like the Singers, for example, they don't speak. They kind of let their actions speak or the results speak. Like we won the Scudetto without either of the Singers ever really saying a word. We just knew that Elliot were running us well and they put the right people in place for the sporting side to be taken care of. In this case, it's been a bit different because Cardinale, since he took over in 2022, was very vocal in the media for a while about what he wanted to do and where he saw the potential of Milan. He made some faux pas, with some of the things that he said. And I think the Italian media, as they tend to do, they have a fear of outsiders and this kind of thing. They took everything that he said and they microanalyzed it, and I think they built a particular narrative surrounding him that was mixed, shall we say. And I'm going into speculation here, but I think Cardinale developed a bit of a mistrust of the Italian media, stopped giving interviews to newspapers and things like that. Luca Cohen, who's sort of a rising source, shall we say, in the Milan world, he even said that he's been in Italy way more than has been reported. It's just that he's not speaking to anyone. He's letting Iglitare do it. He trusts Allegri to do it. Zlatan has been speaking a bit more recently. But we've got a bit of insight, which is something. We've got some words about the club to go on. I'll start with the first question. He got asked, what's it like owning a team like AC Milan? I'll just read the key bits of each of his response because he tends to then waffle on when he said something that's quite big. First of all, it depends on the jurisdiction you own in. It's probably the hardest thing I've ever done. It's a challenge because the ecosystem I operate in is very resistant to change, but that's also the investment thesis. In 3 years of owning Milan, we've been cash flow positive for the first time in 17 years, and I don't keep that money for myself. I reinvest it in the team. We've spent more than any other Serie A team in the last summer window. We're building a new stadium, not to pocket money, but to transform Milan's financial profile and bring it to the level of Premier League teams. Hardest thing he's ever done? Think that might be fair comment. Do you think that is a little bit of he says resistant to change? Is this a little bit of shade thrown at Italy straight away?
Yeah, that 100% is shade at Italy. And he's right. They are resistant to change. I mean, look at the stadium issue. Look at the stadium issue across Italy. It's not just Milan who has tried and failed multiple times over. So, but is it the hardest thing he's done? I don't know. I don't know the guy, so I don't know the
Yeah,
things
true.
he's done. I would imagine it's definitely up there, right? It can't be an easy task, especially with
Yeah.
the fan reception. If he is online at all, he probably has seen a lot of hate thrown towards him. So, but it's not the most fun.
Yeah, I mean, I know because of the job that I do and because of the people that I've spoken to that are in Cardinale's circle, shall we say, that he is very aware of the things that get said and that he thinks a lot of it is unfair. Now, that is a whole separate discussion, you know, in my opinion. But I think for him to say that, it is, you know, about it being the hardest thing that he's ever done. And as you say, we don't. If he says it, then it's true, right? Because he knows what deep down in his head is the hardest thing that he's ever done. It's also the biggest thing he's probably ever done because everything else he's been sort of a part of rather than the controlling party in. And in this, he's, you know, he's taken on what he's related, what he's called a sleeping giant, and he's trying to kind of awaken it by doing all these things that he sees as being common sense almost. Let's build a new stadium, let's raise the revenues, let's build the TV rights and the profile of the club as a global brand, all the things that you can do to kind of multiply that revenue. And yeah, it's clear dig in it. He's saying he's encountered a lot of stubbornness basically, and we know that to be the case. We know that Italy is as he calls it, an ecosystem that is resistant to change, and it does have its challenges. But I also think like he must have known what he was getting into. Like surely you do a bit of due
Yeah.
diligence and realize, okay, let's build a stadium. Well, here we are a few years on, and it isn't as simple as that, as it turns out. You know, so does that factor into the investment profile of the club? He's decided to do it anyway. And yeah, he seems to be sticking with it for the time being, and we'll wait and see what happens on the stadium front. I also thought the line was interesting about he's not keep. I don't keep that money for myself. I reinvest it in the team. We spent more than any other Serie A team in the summer. Thought that was interesting because he is referring there to actual transfer spend and not net spend.
Right.
And I think might this be where there's a bit of a difference in, I don't know, in the American perception of things. For well, not American. I don't know, because I think the way that American sports teams operate in, right, is like it's a different thing. To acquire a player, you have to sign them through free agency or you have to trade, right?
Yeah.
He sees making lots of moves through player trading as I've done a lot of business and therefore we spent the most, and he probably sees merit in that statement. Whereas in the European football world, as we know, net spend tends to be the better signifier, and wage bill tends to be the signifier of how ambitious you're trying to be. And we know our wage budget went down, for example, from last season to this season, and we know that our net spend was near enough even.
Yeah.
We sold a lot of players, you know, big players left. Reinders left for big money. Chow has gone to Newcastle, and as they keep telling us, is the best centre back since Maldini or whatever. But on a serious note, we all said we did a good job selling players, but I don't think we all looked at this squad and went, it's 200 million better. We lost pieces and we tried to replace them.
Yeah, I would say in terms of the squad itself, it's, you know, it's thinner. Obviously, that's not a shock to anyone. And we're feeling the ramifications right now because of, you know, a very small amount of injuries that has become a large percentage of the squad just based on the depth that we have. Now, in terms of his comment on it, I go back and forth on if I think it's disingenuous or not, because I think you're right. He does see it as we did a lot of business and I made a bunch of trades, and I think I do agree with that. But also, like you said, as people who are knowledgeable on the European model and how the sport actually works, we didn't really spend any money, you know. And I have to assume he knows that, right? Because we're in year 3 of the Cardinale era, or year 4.
Year 4, yeah, 2022. So by the end of this, we've done 4 years, yeah.
So 4 years, he knows how it works. He has to know how it works. So the way he's saying that is disingenuous, and that's where you have to start looking at the article as a whole. If this is said early on, you go, okay, this is a PR piece, which of course it was, but it's not as honest and introspective as you would hope, because now he's saying something that is, you know, a half truth, but he's spinning it in a way that makes it look better than it is. And that's where, you know, that's the first red flag that I go, okay, so what else are you going to tell us that might not be the whole truth?
I think especially to do it in